Hello there and welcome to another live chapter reading for Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Today I shall be reading from Secure Her, the Chase Security Series number 4 by R.L. Dunn. Chapter 1. Sunday, October the 22nd. The Chase Security International Navigator pulled to the departures curb at the San Diego airport. Zachary Ice Wentworth's eyes twinkled with delight leaning inside the rear passenger door. "Sadie lady, you take care of Mummy and Julian," he said to the precocious 4-year-old. "Uncle Ice, Julian says I can call him Daddy." "You can call him that too," Sadie Morrison smiled from her car seat. "Okay, Sadie," he kissed her cheek. "Mummy, take care of Daddy for me." He winked, holding a door for her to move up front. Then he turned to see Julian holding his bags. "You okay, Daddy?" "Yeah," his colleague and head of the San Diego office, Julian Smooth Depart, said. "You can stay another day and take the company plane." "It's not a hardship to fly first class. Besides, I have an undercover operator class starting tomorrow." "You all right?" Julian cocked his head. "It hurts, and it will for a while. I should have demanded you get out." "Who I should have heeded me as mission control. That was the problem that ended our personal relationship. Lesson learned, running an operation with personal ties has legitimate issues." A glint of sadness flashed through his sapphire blue eyes. "I'm sorry. Guilt eats at you. I'm ready when you want to talk it through." He knocked his fist against his heart and pointed to Zach. "Safe flight. I'll talk to you at the division meeting on Thursday." "Take care of your two ladies and the little dot," Zach repeated Julian's gesture. "Martin and his blips, me and my dot." He smiled and climbed into the driver's seat. Zach inhaled deeply and watched Julian pull away. Saoirse Kennedy stepped from the government-issued Ford. Andre Nolan climbed from the driver's seat and pulled 2 large suitcases and a carry-on from the trunk. "Can you manage?" he asked. "I've got it." She stacked a carry-on on the top of one of the larger bags. "Are you going to miss me?" He approached her, aiming to kiss her on her lips. "You take care of yourself." She smiled, turning her cheek to meet his lips. "Of course I will. You taught me so much," she said to her work partner. Once inside, she groaned at the long check-in line for her flight to New York. Despite her federal pre-check clearance, she had to stand in line to check her licensed firearm. "Federal agents, I need to check a firearm and ammunition," she said in a low voice to not draw attention to herself. The representative at the desk called out, "I have a gun to be checked." Her loud voice was cringe-worthy. Saoirse dropped her head as everyone in the line stared at her. "Can we do this without making any more announcements?" she frowned. "Ma'am, it's you who chooses to fly with a weapon." A man in a suit now stood across from her. "I'm a federal agent who uses a weapon as part of my course of business. Please, my weapon is in a sealed box, unloaded with my ammunition in another sealed box. I have the only key. It is part of my checked baggage." Her voice strained, repeating the regulations. "Step over here, please." The man pointed to the side. Zach stood 2 people behind a statuesque woman with flowing honey hair, who was wearing a wrinkle-free navy pencil skirt, 3-inch navy heels, and a white silk blouse. Her skin was the colour of peaches and cream, and pale freckles dotted her cheeks. Her luscious full lips were made for kissing. He was lost in his fantasy when he heard the words, "I have a gun to be checked." On alert, he watched the situation unfold. The man checking her weapon was looking at her like she was a meal and treated her like she was stupid. He gritted his teeth as they called a female TSA employee over to pat her down. His turn to check in came with the same words, "I have a weapon to check in." All the senior executive staff of Chase Security International carried Homeland Security credentials for the purpose of facilitating some of their operations. Another representative approached him, assessed his identification, his weapon and ammunition, then he x-rayed his baggage and checked him in. "I don't mean to create an issue, but why is your colleague giving my colleague difficulty checking in?" The representative looked up at Zach. At 6'3", with pure white spiked hair and laser-focused blue eyes, he was an intimidating sight. "Excuse me, and I will check for you." Zach watched his representative speak to the other man and point. Moments later, both men were going out of their way to apologise to the woman. She turned to look in Zach's direction. Her now visible aquamarine eyes sparkled as she offered a small smile before looking down towards the ground. His heart rate soared and his body filled with an awareness he hadn't felt since his relationship with Hua. Don't go there. United Flight 395 departing for Newark Liberty Airport is now boarding Group 1 passengers, a woman said over the loudspeaker. Zack rose from where he was sitting to head to the boarding gate. Coming towards him from the packed waiting area was the beauty, who also carried a gun. Chill, you're 42, he warned himself. He continued down the ramp to his seat in first class. Working for CSI had its perks. He placed his carry-on in the overhead bin, then turned to his row, finding her standing in the aisle waiting. I'm sorry. He stepped into his row and to let her pass. It's me who's sorry. I have the window seat, the woman said. He stepped out and she lifted the heavy case to slide into the overhead bin. May I help? He offered. You seem to be helping me a lot since I got to the airport. Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm Saoirse Kennedy. He popped her bag into the bin and let her reach her seat. Zack Wentworth. Shove me if I snore. I've been awake for the last 2 days packing up my office, and yesterday I missed my planned flight because the people subletting my place in San Diego were delayed. I'm starting a new position in New York. This was the last flight possible to be on time for work at 8 o'clock. God, I'm babbling. She lowered her eyes again. He found her intriguing. I've been staying with a friend whose 4-year-old thinks 5 o'clock is late. I might beat you to it. I too sleep-deprived gunslingers. I swear that man wanted to break my, well, you know, because I'm a woman. She leaned towards him conspiratorially. It's a good thing my gun was locked and unloaded. I was tempted to put one between his beady eyes. But then there's paperwork, he said. Where in Ireland? You have a good ear, Mr. Wentworth. My mother was born in Dublin. She looked down and away. Zack let it go. She was a stranger, and whatever it was about her mother, she was not ready to share it. Not so much the ear, but Saoirse is not a name often heard in the US. My father has British roots, but my mother's side, the Canes, are from Waterford. I have 2 aunts on my dad's side and 7 aunts and 8 uncles on my mum's. Makes for interesting get-togethers. You know the adage, put a group of people who have issues with each other in the same room, add alcohol, and boom. I'll ask the uncouth question. Which agency do you carry for? She sucked in her bottom lip. Zack wanted to be the one chewing her lip. He mentally kicked himself. If you weren't in the same predicament, you know, if I tell you I'll have to kill you, but since you were on one of the boat's decks, I carry for Homeland. The US Attorney's Office. The seatbelt lecture began, followed by the safety portion. Moments later they were airborne. Newark, here we come, he teased. She checked her watch. Do you think I'll have a chance to grab my bags, call an Uber, and get to Lexington Avenue by 8? You're going to think I'm a stalker, but I'm heading that way. I have a car meeting me, and I'd be happy to offer you a ride. I do have a self-preservation gene, but given what I know about you, I think I'll be safe, and thank you. Zack settled back in his seat. Saoirse drank some cranberry juice with a club soda during her meal. He chose seltzer with a lime twist to accompany the first-class meal of appetizer, salad, main course, and an ice cream sundae. He imagined spoon-feeding Saoirse the cool dessert, and an image of the swirling fudge over what he thought would be a pinkish-brown nipple and her right beneath him filled his mind. Adjusting his position to hide his arousal, he smiled. Best part of the meal? Chapter 2. After they walked to the baggage return to await their suitcases, Zack's first bag rolled around on a trolley. Saoirse observed him lean in and lift the bag as if it weighed nothing, his muscles bunching across his back. What are you thinking? As she reached for her first bag, Zack grabbed it for her. Thank you. You do know if you weren't here I'd have had to do it myself. But I am here. Zack's tone sent a shiver down her spine and she gave in. As she waited for her second bag, she asked, Are you heading into the office today? Yeah, I've been in San Diego for a month working on a special project. I've a lot to take care of. She saw something she couldn't decipher flash across his eyes. You said you were subletting your place. Where are you staying? He asked. My boss gave me a little notice. For now, I'm staying near the offices at St. Andrew's Plaza. She kept the hotel name to herself. When she observed her second bag and stepped to lean in, Zack reached over her and grabbed it. Normally this behaviour would make her angry, but with him she didn't get upset. She was too tired to analyse why. Zack stacked his one bag and her 2 bags on a rolling cart. They walked up to the pickup area as a black Tahoe pulled up to the curb. 2 men in navy blue suits stepped from the vehicle. Good morning, Mr. Wentworth, the driver said. Gentlemen, Miss Kennedy is riding with us. We are dropping her off. He turned to Saoirse. Is there a coffee shop near East 53rd Street in Lexington? Zack nodded at the 2 Chase security employers. Load us up. How's the traffic? If we can get out of here, it should be smooth sailing, the passenger said. Zach held the door for Saoirse and slid in next to her. She maintained a poker face when the front passenger keyed up a microphone. Transport through to communications. We have New York Alpha 4 to home. One female passenger to be dropped off at 153 East 53rd Street, the atrium. Alpha 4, huh? Is that like the Fantastic Four? She giggled. Well, we are 4 and fantastic. Maybe we need theme music and spandex. The corners of his lips turned up. Saoirse blushed and looked out of the window. Her imagination filled with the idea of Zach in spandex. Their banter, along with subtle innuendo, occupied the trip to Manhattan, but she was grateful the truck pulled up to the curve. The conversation was heading out of her comfort zone, more like out of her league. Thank you for the ride. This beats Uber any time, she said, as he helped her from the chauffeur Tahoe. It was my pleasure. Would you like to grab lunch or dinner sometime? He asked. I'd like that. She opened her purse and handed Zach a business card. The coffee shop around the corner from Lexington Avenue building belonging to the Chase Group was bustling. Saoirse ordered a large coffee with a double shot of espresso. The course offered by their new domestic law enforcement division had a waiting list, and being tired was not an excuse to miss it. The ride gave her half an hour to freshen up, drink the coffee and get to the building. The classroom held 250 students. She smiled as she went through the security check. The operators identified her, checked her weapon and baggage, and when completed issued her ID for the day. Entering the cavernous lecture hall, she found herself an aisle seat midway into the room. People watching, she catalogued an assortment of law enforcement members in various uniforms and plain clothes. As the lights dimmed in the auditorium, she bit her lip to hold back a chuckle. Agent Provocateur, what do you think of when I say that? Zach Wentworth, dressed in an impeccable navy suit, said, stepping from the wings. The corner of his lips turned up. To some, I see, it recalls some pricey lingerie. His eyes shone as he looked out at the audience. A wry smile and a small head shake greeted Saoirse. Good morning, my name is Zach Wentworth. Welcome to Undercover, How to Catch the Bad Actor and Stay Alive. Some in the classroom laughed. The class about undercover work was being taught to law enforcement officers around the country, where blown covers had caused a recent spate of tragic deaths. The Domestic Law Enforcement Training Division provided agencies with training and advice in non-typical police activities throughout the United States. According to the brochure she was reading for the first time, Zach was the division's director. You can't instigate a crime to get someone to commit a crime, Saoirse, with a touch of an Irish accent, called out. Focusing on her, he replied, yes, rule number 1, you cannot induce someone to commit a crime. With that in mind, over the next 4 days, my staff and I will discuss, demonstrate and facilitate your ability to function as an undercover operative. We will discuss simple single-shift decoys to elaborate long-term investigations. The most important thing we want you to hold on to. He paused. Whatever you do, you must finish the operation alive. To survive, you must get your target to reveal the illegal activity without revealing who you are, and if your cover is blown, find a way to stay alive long enough to get away or for help to arrive. Zach moved from the podium, a small wireless microphone attached to the lapel of his sleek suit. Patience. The first thing that will get you caught is pushing too fast. You're developing a relationship. You are not a piece of candy, one flavour that melts away with time. Your undercover persona has a life. How you carry yourself, how you use your hands, your facial expressions, interests, clothing, if necessary, lingerie, all form part of the operation. An example, if you're portraying a golfer, can you play the game? What's a birdie? Par mulligan. If you're a gun dealer, can you identify, disassemble, assemble and fire the weapon? If you're a hooker, can you say words without blushing like fuck, pussy and penis? Do you know what dominance and submission are? A failure in any aspect can break your cover. Again, it goes back to patience and 2 other important concepts, planning and observation. These 3 pieces are required of every operation. A hand went up. Yes, he acknowledged the questioner. You're saying all this has to go into a simple bag of John or buying some drugs? Another woman in the class asked. What's your name? He asked. Mary King. Zach paused. Saoirse followed his gaze back to Mary, who was sitting beside her. She was a gun chewer. About 23 and with a medium build, she was copying her notes and also blushed as he approached her. Mary, in one word, yes. Some of the class laughed, but she pouted. That is, if you want to survive. Saoirse was intrigued by him. Zach scratched his head and looked at his expensive shoes. Pressing his lips together, he crunched his brows and spun in a complete circle. Tapping his lip with one finger, he said, Shoot, I forgot to call my mother on her birthday. He returned to the podium and wrote something down. I'm sorry, where was I? He stood perfectly still, watching the room, seemingly lost in thought. His three main instructors stood to his right side at the parade rest. You were talking about observation and patience, a male voice called out. Others groaned at his apparent forgetfulness. Patience, observation, and planning. His expression remained blank. You, sir, he pointed to a blond man in the third row. You may want to explain to your supervisor and your wife that you attended last night's New York Rangers game with a woman who isn't your wife, instead of going to work. And you, he pointed to a woman sitting in the fifth row, we don't do early dismissal. Tell your son to find a ride. He moved from the stage again and into the audience. Come with me. He picked out a uniformed man with close-cropped brown hair and asked him to come on stage. Detective Robbins, Zach introduced the New Jersey State Police officer to the crowd. Do me the honour of confirming whether I am correct. Zach placed his back to the audience. Detective Picaro. Fourth, sir. Observation matters. Know your surroundings. Appear interested in one thing while paying attention to something else. Zach smiled at the young detective on stage. There are 19 people in the fourth row, 10 men and 9 women. He went on to divide the group by hair colour and outfit. Turning back to the audience, he said, knowing who and what are around you will save your life. Thank you for listening to this chapter reading. I hope you enjoyed the book and that you'll go check it out. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.